The stakes are so high for Utah, and there's so much tanking going on elsewhere. There's so much competition for tanking that they are now actively taking their players off the court. There are multiple teams that are trading for players and immediately saying that they're injured and keeping them out for long periods of time. The Jazz are following the rules. They are activating healthy players and playing them. They're just not playing them all out.
The Utah Jazz swing a huge trade for Jaren Jackson Jr., and in his debut versus the Orlando Magic, they're up 17 points. Jaren Jackson Jr. is dominating. The man scored 24 points. Lauri Markkanen is cooking. Everything is going right. And then the fourth quarter starts and their coach Will Hardy does something that has the entire NBA world losing its mind. He benches all of his starters, every single one of them except Ace Bailey. And wouldn't you know it, the Jazz lose by 3. The very next game against the Miami Heat, the same thing happens. Hardy yanks Markkanen, Jackson, and Jusuf Nurkic for the entire fourth quarter. But this time, their young guys accidentally won the game, which is somehow even more embarrassing because it proves the tanking is so obvious that even when they try to lose, they can't always pull it off. After the Miami game, a reporter asked Will Hardy how close he was to putting Markkanen or Jackson back in during the fourth quarter, and Hardy basically admitted that it was never going to happen no matter what.
How close were you to putting Jaren in the Magic game?
I wasn't.
There was zero plausible deniability left. Bobby Marks went on NBA Today and said this.
I think what Utah is doing right now is messing around with the integrity of the NBA.
And here's the thing, Utah is just the team that is getting most of the attention for this right now. They are far from alone. We are watching something we have never seen before in the NBA. Nearly a third of the league is actively trying to lose basketball games, and we are not even at the All-Star break yet. This isn't late season load management. This isn't just a couple of bad teams limping to the finish line. Sports Illustrated is calling it a tanking epidemic. The Ringer says the race to the bottom is more interesting than the race to the top. And Adam Silver is about to walk into All-Star Weekend in LA with the biggest crisis of his time as commissioner staring him right in the face. So today we're going to break down exactly how bad the tanking problem has gotten, which teams are the worst offenders, why this draft class has turned half the league into professional losers, how this connects to the gambling scandal that has already shaken the NBA this season, and whether the league can actually do anything to fix it. So make sure you leave a like for us to get pushed in the algorithm, and let's get to today's video. So we're getting another free square. All LeBron James needs tonight versus the Dallas Mavericks is 1 point for his square to hit, and I have an excellent play for tonight's game so we could turn this into some free money. First, use my promo code microphone to get $50 when you make a play of $5 or more on Prize Picks, and then tail this pick. I obviously have the LeBron James free square, but in tonight's game when the Jazz take on the Portland Trailblazers, Jaren Jackson Jr. is going to be out. So I expect Jusuf Nurkic to get over 8.5 rebounds and Donovan Clingan to get over 10.5 points. I'm putting down $25 to make $100. Now, if you want additional plays, we have a team of sharks in my Discord community, the second link from the top, that has consistently been hitting on a daily basis. It's the WAP link in the description down below. And thank you, Prize Picks, for sponsoring today's video. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Let me just paint the picture for you of what the NBA looks like right now. The Sacramento Kings have the worst record in basketball at 12-43. They just set a new Sacramento franchise record with a 13-game losing streak, passing the 97-98 squad. The all-time franchise record is 14 straight, which was back when they were the Cincinnati Royals in the early 1970s. They had already surpassed last season's entire loss total, and we still have about a third of the season left to play. DeMar DeRozan, a 6-time All-Star, was caught on camera slamming a water bottle on the floor during their blowout loss to the Pelicans because he was so frustrated. The Kings are the third oldest team in the NBA with the 8th highest payroll, and they look like a G League squad on most nights. They have used 27 different starting lineups this season because they have never had their planned starting 5 all healthy at the same time. Keegan Murray, Domantas Sabonis, and Zach LaVine have all missed time. And for their last game before the All-Star break against the Jazz, they ruled out 6 of their top 8 players by minutes per game. A tank battle for the ages in Salt Lake City. The Indiana Pacers are right behind them at 13-40. Now, I will give Indiana some credit because their situation is a little different. Tyrese Halliburton heroically put his body on the line and tore his Achilles in Game 7 of the NBA Finals last June. So this was always going to be a gap year. But it gets interesting. The Pacers traded for Ivica Zubac at the deadline, and as part of that deal, they sent their 2000 2026 first round pick to the Clippers, but that pick only conveys if it lands between 5 and 9. So think about that for a second. The Pacers have basically said they only want this pick if it's in the top 4, because that means they're getting one of the elite prospects. Otherwise, the Clippers can have it. So now Indiana has every reason to be as bad as possible to make sure they land in that top 4 range. And reports are already surfacing that Indiana is over exaggerating injuries to make sure they do not accidentally win too many games. Now let's talk about the Washington Wizards, because what they're doing might actually be the most audacious tank job in NBA history. In the span of about a month, the Wizards traded for 2 former All-Stars. They got Trae Young from the Hawks on January 7th, and then Anthony Davis from the Mavericks right before the deadline. It sounds like a team that's trying to win a championship, right? Well, neither of these players suited up for Washington this year. Young has been dealing with a knee and quad issue since before the trade and has not played for the Wizards at all. And as for AD, the team announced that he is expected to sit out the rest of the season to get fully healthy for next year. So let me get this straight. The Wizards made 2 blockbuster trades, acquired a combined $100 million in salary between Young and Davis. They did not give up any of their core pieces like Alexandre Sarr or their lottery picks, and neither star is going to play meaningful minutes this season. Brian Windhorst reported that there is some irritation within the league about teams trading for injured players as a strategic move to rebuild while tanking.
There are multiple teams that are trading for players and immediately saying that they're injured and keeping them out.
The Wizards are sitting at 14-38, and they owe their 2026 first round pick to the Knicks if it falls outside of the top 8. So Washington has to stay bad enough to keep their pick while stockpiling stars for next season. It's the ultimate way to have your cake and eat it too. It's not just stars that are being shelved. In one game against the Nets, Washington played only 8 players total. Guys like Jameer Watkins and Will Riley, who averaged less than 20 minutes a game, were playing 45 minutes each. Meanwhile, core rotation guys like Bub Carrington and Justin Champagnie were barely being used. This is not trying to win basketball games. This is a team doing everything humanely possible to stay in the lottery while assembling a squad that could legitimately make the playoffs next year. And you know what the craziest part is? If this actually works and the Wizards land a top 4 pick and then roll out a lineup next season of Trae Young, Anthony Davis, Alexandre Sarr, and whoever they draft, nobody's going to be mad at them. They'll look like geniuses. But right now, in the middle of the season, fans who paid good money to watch NBA basketball are getting served up a G League product. I mean, just look at what Bam Adebayo said after the Jazz accidentally beat his Miami Heat.
We got to find a way to win even against teams that are, I guess you can say, trying to lose.
Back to the Utah Jazz, because they deserve their own section for what they've been pulling. Utah made a very peculiar move at the deadline, trading 3 picks and multiple prospects to the Memphis Grizzlies for Jaren Jackson Jr., a 2-time All-Star and an all-defensive first-team player. In his Jazz debut, Jackson and Markkanen combined for 49 points on 55% shooting. They looked incredible together. The future looked bright. And then the fourth quarter came and Hardy sent them both to the bench with the team up by 7. Think about how wild this is. The Jazz's tanking approach is not even about shutting players down for the season. They're letting their guys play 3 quarters of the game, building chemistry, getting the reps in for next year, and then pulling them in the fourth quarter so they can lose. It is literally a new innovation in tanking. And Brian Windhorst put it perfectly on Get Up when he said,
Tanking historically has been done on the inactive list. What's happening here is that they're putting the reins on players who are active in game.
That is the key difference this year. We have seen teams shut down guys before. We have seen teams rest players on the second night of a back-to-back, but we have never seen a team up double digits in a game just decide to bench their entire starting front court for the fourth quarter. That is a whole new level. And it gets even crazier when you hear what Wendy said on the Rich Eisen show about Will Hardy.
You know, when he signed it, he understood this is what I'm being paid to do. I'm being paid to do what the organization wants me to do.
Let that sink in. The coach signed an extension knowing full well that part of his job this season is to lose games. That is the organization telling him that we need you to manage this tank, and Hardy accepting the assignment. Last year, the NBA fined the Jazz $100,000 for sitting Markkanen, and he made a miraculous recovery right after. This year, they figured out the loophole. You cannot get fined for resting a star if you played him for 3 quarters, right? The league has rules about sitting star players, meaning anyone who made an all-star team or all-NBA team in the past 3 seasons. But those rules were not written for a team that benches their stars during the game, and the Jazz have a very specific reason for all of this. Their 2020 2026 first-round pick goes to the OKC Thunder if it lands outside of the top 8. So just like Washington, Utah needs to stay bad enough to keep that pick. They traded real assets for Jaren Jackson specifically because he makes their future better, but they cannot afford to accidentally get good this season. And that brings us to the main reason why this is happening. The 2026 NBA draft class might be the best that we have ever seen in over a decade. There are 3 legitimate number 1 overall picks in this class, and you could honestly put them in any order and not be wrong. Darren Peterson out of Kansas is a 6'6" guard who is scoring at almost a point per minute at the college level. One Eastern Conference scout told ESPN that to me, he's number 1, and I don't know what scenario would have me bump him down. He has been dealing with a hamstring injury on and off, but when he plays, he is shooting 44% from 3 on high volume, and he looks like the best guard prospect in years, maybe decades. Cameron Boozer at Duke is a 6'9", 250-pound forward who is averaging 23 points and 10 rebounds as an 18-year-old freshman. A walking 20 and 10 just like his dad Carlos Boozer used to be. One coach who faced Duke this season said he's going to average 20 and 10 probably forever. And then there's AJ DeBonsa at BYU, a 6'9" wing who is putting up 24.5 points, 6.3 rebounds, and 3.7 assists with physical tools and athleticism that scouts say you only see in video games. And it doesn't stop there. UNC's Caleb Wilson and Houston's Kingston Flemings round out a top 5 that draft experts are comparing to the best we have ever seen. One prominent draft analyst called this trio of Peterson, Boozer, and DeBonsa the best group of potential stars at the top that we've seen over the last 15 seasons. When you have a draft class like this, every loss is not just a loss, it is an investment. It is a lottery ticket for a franchise-changing player, and that is why nearly a third of the league has decided that winning games in February is the worst thing that can happen to them. Now guys, it's not just the Jazz, Wizards, Kings, and Pacers. The Brooklyn Nets at 15 and 37 are fully committed to the rebuild. They waived Cam Thomas right after the deadline, their second leading scorer, and that's because they couldn't find a trade partner and they just decided to move on. They also sat Michael Porter Jr. and Igor Demine in a game against the Bulls, further showing what direction this franchise is heading in. The Nets don't even control their own first-round picks for the next several drafts, so they're playing the long game with young players and cap space. The Dallas Mavericks literally traded Anthony Davis to Washington for a very underwhelming return. They did this because they wanted to fast track the Cooper Flag era after lucking into the number 1 pick last year with just a 1.8% chance. Dallas doesn't control their own first round pick from 2027 to 2030. So this season is about getting as much value as possible while the rebuild window is open. Now here's where the story gets really dark, and you may not agree with this parallel that I'm drawing here. This isn't just about competitive integrity in an abstract sense. The NBA has a gambling problem that is directly connected with the tanking problem. Remember, this season started with the arrests of Terry Rozier, Chauncey Billups, and Damon Jones as part of a massive federal gambling investigation. Federal prosecutors specifically alleged that a co-conspirator tied to Billups tipped off a bettor that the Portland Trail Blazers were going to be tanking and resting star players ahead of a March 2023 game against the Chicago Bulls. Before that info went public, Rozier was accused of informing bettors that he would be exiting a game early, allowing them to bet the under on his stats. That inside information was allegedly sold for $100,000. A Sacred Heart University poll found that 79% of sports bettors said that the recent scandals are affecting their trust in the integrity of NBA games, and 36% said they are less likely to bet on the NBA because of integrity concerns. Ironically enough, my good friend that runs our baseball channel, Uni Diamond Talk, had money on the Utah Jazz versus the Orlando Magic. He was watching it at my place, he was gloating about how good of a call this was. The Jazz go up by 7 into the fourth quarter, and then they bench all their players. So that's a direct example of this. The league is not only dealing with federal indictments, but half of the teams are openly trying to lose. When teams are benching healthy starters, sitting new acquisitions indefinitely, and inflating injury reports, anyone with a connection to an NBA front office has a massive gambling advantage. That is the part that should terrify the league office. The NBA sent out a memo to all 30 teams in December outlining potential changes to injury reporting, proposing updates every 15 minutes instead of every hour, and restricting certain prop bets. They also discussed tanking reforms at the Board of Governors meeting, but here we are in February and nothing has actually changed yet. The memo was the NBA's way of saying that we see the problem, but seeing it and fixing it are two very different things. So here's the $1 million picture. Can the NBA actually fix this? Mark Stein reported that the search for tanking remedies was a prominent topic at the NBA Competition Committee meeting in late January. Ideas have been floating around everywhere. At the Board of Governors meeting back in December, several proposals were discussed. One was to limit pick protections to either top 4 or top 14 and higher, which would eliminate those middle lottery protections that create the messy incentive structures we see in Utah and Washington. Another was to not allow a team to draft in the top 4 2 years in a row. A third was to lock lottery positions in March so teams cannot tank their way to a better pick in the final 6 weeks. One team executive told Sports Illustrated straight up that fines don't matter. It's gotta be about the pick. They suggested that teams caught blatantly tanking should have their lottery odds docked. Imagine the Utah Jazz losing a few percentage points off of their lottery chances because they benched their starters in the fourth quarter. That would change their behavior really quickly. But here's the idea that I really love. On the Road Trippin' show, Richard Jefferson proposed something inspired by soccer.
There was a thing in soccer. Once you're eliminated from the playoffs, you should actually be given points towards your percentage for the games you win. Does that make sense?
So instead of going 0 for 10 in your last 10 games to get the best odds, going 6 and 4 would give you a higher percentage. You are rewarded for competing, not for quitting. So those 6 wins, instead of giving you a 30% chance, if you can win 6 of your last 10 after you've been eliminated, you actually have a 35% chance. This way you're rewarded for pushing all the way to the end. And honestly, that's kind of brilliant because it attacks the root of the problem. Right now, losing is rewarded. Every loss makes your lottery odds a tiny bit better. Flip that on its head and suddenly there's no reason to bench your starters. There is no reason to inflate injury reports. There is no reason to trade for all-stars and then refuse to play them. You want the best lottery odds? Go out there and try to win. Now, is it the perfect solution? No. Teams could still try to lose early in the season to get eliminated faster and then start winning later. But it is a step in the right direction. And it is a whole lot better than what we have now, which is a system where only one team with under 20 wins has actually gotten the #1 overall pick since the lottery odds were flattened in 2019. The most common result for the teams with the best odds since those changes, the 5th pick. That has happened 7 times out of the 21 teams that had 14% odds. So the NBA already took away the safety net but left all the incentives to tank in place. It's the worst of both worlds. At the end of the day, this is a test for Adam Silver. He is going to be in Los Angeles for All-Star Weekend in a few days, and this topic is going to come up every single time he steps in front of the microphone. David Stern, Silver's predecessor, was known for reacting quickly and decisively. Silver is more diplomatic. He does not like making decisions based on circumstantial evidence, even when that evidence seems overwhelming. But this is the moment where diplomacy might not be enough. When fans are paying hundreds of dollars to watch NBA basketball and instead are getting served lineups where Svi Mikhailuk has started nearly as many games for the Jazz this season as he did in his previous 5 seasons combined playing for 7 different teams, something is broken. The NBA has the best product in professional sports when everyone is trying. The problem is that right now, on any given night, you might be watching a team that would rather lose than win. And until the league fundamentally changes the incentive structure, until losing stops being the best path to future success, this is only going to get worse. Because next year there will be another loaded draft class, and the year after that, and teams are always going to chase franchise-altering talent. The question is whether Adam Silver has the courage to actually do something about it, or whether we are going to keep watching this play out season after season while the league pretends to be surprised. Because right now, the race to the bottom is the most competitive thing happening in the NBA, and that should scare everyone who cares about this league. Now, if this is your first time watching one of my videos, make sure you subscribe, because otherwise you may never see one of my videos on your feed again. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.